All right, guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are joining us. It's great to have you. Now, a couple quick reminders. So, this is our second lesson for period 2. Okay, but by the way, our calendar has fallen. Your next class will be your period 1 exam. So that will be unit 1 and unit 2. Okay, so the stuff from today as well as our last class will not be on your period 1 exam. Okay, we are in period 2, which is 1450 to 1750. And we are talking about how Europe became so dominant, how Europe became so powerful. And so today we're going to explore a little bit more about these European maritime empires. Okay, last class we talked about Columbus and Da Gamo and Magellan and Diaz. We talked about very famous explorers and how trade encouraged the Europeans to start working on ways to engage in this trade network. Okay, Europeans got a taste for the black pepper. They got a taste for the finer things, the silk and porcelain, spices. Okay, and now that they have a taste of it, now that they're building these large ships and exploring faraway lands, slowly colonizing things, we need to start talking about what this means for the rest of the world because it's very important. So, take in attendance. As I told you in last class, we are jumping ahead to Unit 4. We will go back to Unit 3 because both Unit 3 and Unit 4 are part of Period 2, okay? It's just easier to talk about Europe, so that's why we're jumping ahead to Unit 4. All right, so for the beginning of class today, I will have you guys submit your digital notebook in the Zoom chat, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that. Obviously, we can't do that on this video. And we're gonna also start with a little bit of a review game just to get your mind working, okay? And you are gonna go ahead and start or continue with period 2 after this, okay? So go ahead and submit your digital notebook writing. Okay. All right, and just a reminder, guys, we have finished period 1, okay? Your exam on that will be either on Thursday or Friday. We are in the middle of period 2, okay? 1450 to 1750. So as you can see, this is a very heavily weighted section on the AP exam. So you should definitely make this a priority to learn, okay? And it's interesting, so I think you guys will like it. So quick game for you guys. Since I'm sitting here by myself filming this, I'm gonna go ahead and play it for fun. What I will do is I will have a world region encircle, and I will say one of the luxury goods from that world region, okay? So East Asia, all right? Silk, porcelain, iron, okay? West Africa, so the Mali Empire, gold, all right? We talked about that, Mansa Musa's own personal stash. India, so South Asia, textiles and spices, okay? Yeah, this is easy. Europe, what are all the really important things that come out of Europe? Oh, right, not much, pretty much nothing. All right, East Africa, so lumber and enslaved peoples. The Middle East, well, Muslim merchants, obviously bringing all these really important goods all over the place. So Arabic numerals coming from South Asia to Europe. Trying to think of what else. Obviously religion, okay. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and start. Okay, so we talked a lot about topic 4.2 on our last class, and today we're jumping ahead to topic 4.4. Okay, so we need to talk about these European maritime empires. So not all of Europe established a maritime empire. But the ones that did are important to talk about, okay? So we're gonna have two types of empires. We're gonna have something called a trading post empire, and we're gonna have something just a regular major empire. Now, every one of these 5 European empires will fall under the umbrella of either being a trading post empire or just a major empire. Okay, what you need to know is that these 5 are kind of like the big 5. All right, all of these European maritime empires are going to embark on voyages of exploration. Okay, so we talked about voyages of exploration like Christopher Columbus sailing to the New World, Vasco da Gama, Ferdinand Magellan, all of those. Okay. But what comes out of these voyages of exploration is access to resources. Okay, so again, guys, things that Europeans do not have, resources that Europeans do not have, they can go and take from these new places. Okay, so we'll talk a lot more about this in the coming days, but all of a sudden, resources that were not able to be found within Europe are suddenly going to become very critical. Okay, they're going to be resources that no one else is going to have, and they're going to be resources that people start to compete for. And what you need to understand, and this is a major theme in AP World History, is that resources equal power. Okay, so the more resources you have, the more powerful you are. And if you have really popular resources, it gives you even more power. Okay, so for example, the Spanish, all right, they are going to have access to gold in the New World. Okay, now gold, as we talked about, is a luxury good. It's going to be something that makes the Spanish a lot of money in terms of trade, and so this is very important. Okay, resources equal power, and so when you have a lot of power, all right, you can do more and more voyages of exploration. So I think you can probably see where we're getting, because Europe will continue to grow more and more powerful. All right, so guys, as I said to you, there are kind of the 2 types of empires we talk about. Several of the empires that you just looked at are going to be considered trading post empires. Now, you might remember from our last class that the Portuguese are going to be a trading post empire. Now remember, the Portuguese don't actually colonize huge swaths of land in this region. Instead, they colonize certain tinier city-states, right? And they're going to control trade based on kind of strategic trading posts. Okay, so instead of wasting time in controlling this large swath of land, these trading posts are going to allow they're going to allow these European empires to control the trading route. So as we said, guys, this Indian Ocean trading route, which in period 1 was free and open, no taxation, it was safe. The trading post empire of the Portuguese are going to stop that, okay? They're going to control the Indian Ocean trading route, and they're going to make pretty much all the money off of it. So what you will see is that the Portuguese are not the only trading post empire, but you need to make sure you understand what this is, okay? Again, it comes down to trading post empires kind of owned a small trading post in strategic areas, okay? And these trading posts also basically forced other people to stop in these trading posts, okay? So, the Portuguese owned all these really important city-states, okay? So if anyone wanted to trade, any British or, French, they would have to stop in these trading posts that were run by the Portuguese. And therefore, they would have to be forced to pay duties. They'd be under the jurisdiction of the Portuguese, okay? So as you can actually see from this map, guys, you'll see that in addition to the Portuguese, you'll also see the Dutch becoming a trading post empire. Okay, so European maritime global empires. Now, what you need to understand is that these empires, they're not like the empires we talked about in period one. Okay, they're not like the Mongols or the Song dynasty. Okay, they're not going to be tolerant. They're not going to be inclusive. Okay, now I know that we said that the most successful empires are the ones that are tolerant. Remember, the most successful empires in theory are the ones that allow you to practice your religion or practice your own language or speak your own language. Okay, the Europeans don't have to be tolerant. Okay, they have no incentive to be tolerant or inclusive. So the Europeans are going to be the technological gurus. So they've got the biggest, fanciest ships. They've got all the maps. All right, remember, all of those explorers from last class, they created important maps, all right, or cartography. So Europeans are going to have all the really impressive top technology. They're going to have all the information. So why do they need to be tolerant to civilizations that are deemed lesser than them? Okay. Instead, these Europeans are going to dominate global trade. Okay. You'll see the British in the New World, the French in the New World, the Portuguese everywhere, the Dutch everywhere. And these European empires will mostly be suppressing the local populations. Okay, so in period one, we talked about how trade was free and open, and lots of people were engaging in it. Okay, the spread of luxury goods on the Silk Road, the Indian Ocean trading route. In a lot of ways, that time was very peaceful. Okay, Europeans are going to get involved and they're going to shatter that peace. Okay, they are going to attempt to dominate the global trade. They are going to be the ones that try to benefit from taxation, duties, and they're going to try to push their own religion and languages. They're going to colonize, and yeah, things are about to get a little bit rough in world history. Okay, the Europeans are going to shake some stuff up. So let's talk about each individual empire. Okay. The Spanish Empire is not a trading post empire. Okay. Of the 5 empires that you looked at on that first slide, the Spanish are the only ones that are not a trading post empire. And you can see on this map that they absolutely don't need to be. Look at how much land they have. Okay, they have to control all of this territory. And so they're not going to be just establishing small trading posts here to do that. Instead, they're going to take all of this land and they're going to take all of that those resources. Okay, so the Spanish Empire is going to be very, very rich. Okay, they literally find a mountain made of silver in Bolivia, okay, in a place called Potosi. They are going to exploit every little bit of resources they can from South America and a large portion of Central and North America as well. All right, they're going to be most famous for their exportation of silver from this area in South America, so Bolivia. And they're also going to be famous for their exports of sugar. Okay, so sugar is going to be grown in the Caribbean. Okay, and it's going to be grown and worked the land by enslaved peoples. Okay, so the Spanish will be heavily involved in the transatlantic slave trade. So they will be buying lots of enslaved peoples from Western Africa to grow sugar in the Caribbean. Okay, the Spanish will also colonize a place in Asia called the Philippines. All right, so even today, the Philippines, this Asian nation in Southeast Asia, is majority Catholic and speaks a lot of Spanish. Okay, they're going to colonize this area, all right, because they are going to force trade with China. So after the Song dynasty falls, all right, it's going to be replaced by the Ming dynasty. And the Ming dynasty is notorious for isolation, but the Spanish don't care. okay, the Spanish are going to force the Ming to trade with them. And the Ming only really want one thing, and that is silver, okay? Remember, guys, China is a much more advanced civilization, and they really don't, they're not interested in anything, any exports from any places except for silver. And the Spanish are going to exploit that because the Spanish have pretty much all the access to silver from South America. So in period 2, you need to know that the Spanish Empire is going to be the largest empire in the world, okay? And it's not going to be tolerant, and it's not going to be inclusive, okay? What they're going to do is they are going to take all of the Amerindian groups in South America, and they are going to exploit the crap out of them, okay? And we are going to talk a lot about this soon. But one thing you do need to understand too is that the Spanish Empire is relatively unique in that it is not in the Indian Ocean. See that? So this is where you're going to see the Portuguese and the Dutch, but you're not going to see the Spanish. And there's a very important reason for that. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so you need to write this down, guys. The Treaty of Tordesillas. Okay. So when we talked about the Crusades, guys, I told y'all about the Pope, all right, the head of the Catholic Church. Now, the Pope saw that the Portuguese and the Spanish were starting to get up into each other's business, okay? And these are two Catholic nations, so Portugal and Spain, okay? Spain pushed all the Muslims out, so it is now a majority Catholic nation. So what the Pope is going to do, so Pope Alexander VI is going to draw an arbitrary line, all right, right 38th parallel here, right down the center of the earth. And he's going to say the Portuguese get one side and the Spanish get the other. Okay, so he wants both nations to, instead of fighting with each other, instead to work on spreading Catholicism as well as Spanish, okay? So this is gonna bring us a little bit of peace. The Spanish and the Portuguese are gonna be, they're not gonna go to war with each other, but what this is gonna do is this is also gonna create two kind of bipolar worlds almost. So if we go back, guys, you can kind of see where this line is, all right? So why are the Spanish not in the Indian Ocean? Well, the Portuguese are. And the Pope has declared the Spanish cannot be, okay? This also has the effect of giving Portugal a colony. Now, we said in last class that the Portuguese really didn't colonize any places, but we also said that they accidentally acquire Brazil. Well, when the Pope draws this arbitrary line for the Treaty of Tordesillas, he's not really accounting for the spherical shape of the earth. So when you actually look at this line on an actual globe, you'll see that this line goes straight through Brazil. Okay, so the Portuguese go ahead and take this area of Brazil because it's theirs, all right, according to the Catholic Pope. So again, this is going to prevent these two empires from going to war with each other, and that's awesome. But it's also going to make for a really interesting looking world because, again, guys, you got the Spanish with this huge swath of land, and they should be super powerful, but they're not even over here, okay? So let's talk about another empire, guys. So if you look at this map, you can see that the Dutch are indeed a trading post empire, very similar to the Portuguese. But what you should know is that the Dutch, so the Dutch, we're referring to this little tiny place right up here, the Netherlands. Okay, the Netherlands, so if you are a citizen of the Netherlands, you are called Dutch. Okay, so the Dutch, like the Portuguese, it's a trading post empire. But unlike the Portuguese, the Dutch are not Catholic. So the Dutch don't care about the Pope's silly little treaty of Tordesillas. So as you can see, the Dutch are going to go ahead and form their own trading posts in the Indian Ocean. And they're going to build their own trading post empire in Africa, all right, as well as parts of India, but they're primarily going to be in Indonesia. So we said in period 1, Indonesia was the Srivijaya civilization. Well, by period 2, it's going to be a colony of the Netherlands. Okay. So as you can see, guys, the Dutch are going to have small trading posts all around the world. They're going to have one kind of modern day New York. Okay, they're going to have some in the Caribbean. They're going to have some in Brazil. They're going to have some in West Africa. And what you need to know too, guys, is that the Dutch are also going to be heavily involved in the transatlantic slave trade. So as you can see, all those little trading posts, that's where they're going to be buying and eventually transporting enslaved peoples to the New World. So the Dutch are going to make their money not necessarily from exploitation of resources like the Spanish, but from transporting goods. Okay, so in period 1, we talked a lot about Muslim merchants, right? Wherever there is trade, there is Muslim merchants. So in period 2, it's going to be the Dutch. So the Dutch are going to be transporting goods from one Asian market to another. So they'll be transporting textiles and spice from India for porcelain and silk. All right, and they'll be bringing this lumber and enslaved peoples. So the Dutch are pretty much going to be like the trucking industry of the European empires. And because they had so much in common with the Portuguese, remember, trading post empires, and they were in this world region, they were constantly in competition with the Portuguese. Okay? So the other one that you guys all have heard of because they become very important later on is the British Empire. So in period 2, I mean, the British Empire are pretty powerful, but they're not quite to the level that we all think of them, okay? Like the Dutch, the British are going to be Protestants. They're not going to be Catholics. So they're not going to abide by the Treaty of Tordesillas. So that means that the British are going to go and colonize parts of the New World without a care in the world for what the Pope said, okay? So the British Empire is going to be global. And even though they have a pretty big empire or like colony up here in North America, the British are also going to be a trading post empire. So as you can see, they established some trading post cities in India as well as West Africa. And they're also going to be spreading Protestant faith. So like the Catholics, like the Spanish and the Portuguese will be spreading Catholicism. The British will be spreading the Protestant version of Christianity, okay? And the British, this probably comes as no surprise to many of you, they're going to compete with everyone. They're not like they're going to compete with the French, they're going to compete with the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish. There's just going to be no one that they're friendly with. And they're also going to engage in the transatlantic slave route, as you can see here, okay? So the final empire that we need to talk about is the French Empire. And the French Empire is probably the least significant of the ones we speak about today. So the French are majority Catholic, but they actually don't really follow the Treaty of Tordesillas. Okay, so they actually have a much bigger land empire in modern day Canada and the US. Okay, so the French are going to be heavy competitors of the British, which times haven't much changed. They also have much bigger land in Africa, and you'll see them kind of in all their places. Okay. So they also have small islands in the Caribbean, so they too will be exporting sugar. Canada, they will have trading posts in Africa, so they too will be engaging in the transatlantic slave trade. So again, they're not super important, but you do need to know that this is another European empire that will be competing for resources and competing for power. So, and yes, I've got a meme for you. It's not that funny, but I looked hard for a good meme for you guys today. So you don't have to write this first part down, but you do need to write about this right here. So in future classes, we're going to talk about the impact of all of these empires. Okay, we're going to talk about what the British Empire do in period 2, what they do in period 3, what they eventually do in period 4. But what you need to know for now is that Europeans are heavily invested in voyages of exploration. So it might have started with Columbus and Da Gamo and Ferdinand Magellan and Diaz, but it's a continued practice. All right, Europeans are getting in big ships and they're traveling the world and opening trading posts and creating colonies. Okay, and they're colonizing indigenous groups. Okay, they're spreading Catholicism or the Protestant version of Christianity. Okay, they are not going to be tolerant. Okay, they are not going to be inclusive because they don't need to be. All right, if you had the most important weapons and you had pretty much the best transportation, you don't have to be inclusive. All right, you just show up with some big guns and you tell people, hey, you're going to be a Christian now and you're going to pay taxes. Okay, and no one's going to argue with you because you have very beautiful big ships, very, very fancy guns, and you also have disease, which we'll talk about a lot in the coming days. So at this point in time, in period 2, all right, so between 1450 and 1750, Europe is going to be involved in enormous chunks of the world, okay? All over Western Africa, all over the Indian Ocean, okay? Parts of Asia, all over South America, North America, okay? So make sure you understand that in period 2, Europe is slowly but surely establishing itself as a dominant player. Okay, guys, so what I'm gonna do now is I am going to give you guys your writing for the rest of the day. And again, just to reiterate, guys, you have an exam in my class. All right, next class, you will take your period 1 exam. So if you have any more questions, shoot me an email, okay?